Why, Walking Dead writers? What in your mind told you this episode would be a good idea? Hey guys, it's Kevin again, and in this video I'm going to be reviewing to you The Walking Dead Season 4, Episode 6, Live Bait. This episode should have just been called The Governor Boring Hour, because that's literally what it was. And there's so much I could say about how terrible this episode was. And why was this episode totally terrible? Because nothing happened in most of this episode. Nothing remotely interesting happened in this episode. Nothing at all. Nothing that, like, character development. I mean, we did find out some stuff about the governor, but did we really need to spend a whole hour on the governor? There could have been a much easier way to do this. They could have just had the governor return, and we could have seen little flashbacks of this, like little stuff that we could have seen, and we could have seen more of this as it goes on, and he could have just explained it to people. I mean, there is another way of doing this. But no, we have to spend a whole episode on the freaking governor and his storyline with everything. So what exactly happened with the governor? That was what they wanted to know. What happened with the governor this time in the 6 months that he was gone? Which, basically, he did nothing. This random family of sisters, they saved him. And, they saved him with this little girl. Basically, they took after him and everything. They looked after him. And, that's what they did. They looked after him. And if this review is really short, guys, it's because this episode was like nothing. Exactly. I mean, that's why this episode is just so short. It is. It's just really, really short. I mean, that's why this review is so short, because, like, nothing happened. I mean, on Twitter right now, everyone's really upset. You know, it says stuff like, this was the worst episode ever, and things like that. I mean, Twitter was just going crazy with this. I mean, definitely, I was not happy with this episode tonight. I don't think any of us were. After such an amazing episode last week, this is not what we deserved. This is not what we need to see. We did not need to see how the governor became the governor. What we needed to see was Daryl talking to Rick about Carol, and then that whole thing, and then whatever the governor wants to do to the prisoners. That's all we needed to see. We didn't need a whole episode, or two, because it looks like this is going to continue next week, on why the governor is at the prison. What he did in the 6 months he was gone. Turns out that all he did really that was remotely interesting was that this little girl reminded him of his daughter, supposedly. I don't know anything about his daughter, but he basically was bonding with this little girl. And you know what? They were actually caring for the governor in this episode, which was the stupidest idea ever. They were making him, like, play with the little girl's chest and everything, and the sisters were giving him errands to do. It looked like he had chemistry with one of the sisters. It was ridiculous. Just absolute bullshit for most of this episode. It was awful. Like, where's Rick? Where's Daryl? Where's Tyrese? Where's Maggie? Where's Michonne? Where's Sasha? Where's Carl? Where's Lizzie? Where's even Carol? Where's anybody that I'd actually like to see? Where's Bob Stookie? Where's anybody that I want to see in this episode? I don't want to just see the governor. This is not what I wanted in this episode. I don't think any of us wanted this. What we wanted to see was how this was all gonna, fall down. Eventually, though, the governor does get really upset because he finds out that one of the sisters' father is dying of cancer, and he just, like, he has this oxygen tank, and he just kills the grandfather with it. And that was the grandfather. But there was nothing interesting about this because we didn't know anything besides him wanting to kill the grandfather. Why did he want to kill the grandfather? He just, like, snapped. It was the weirdest thing ever. Before this, though, we had, like, this big side of the governor we didn't see. The governor was a complete softie in this episode. That is not what I want to see. I want to see the governor create big problems for this prison. That's what I want to see. I want to see him create big problems and big threats for this prison. See, what he was doing to all the prisoners, the struggle he was going to give them. Not him playing chess with a little girl and talking to her about, like, random shit. I didn't want to see this. I didn't want to see any of this. Half of this episode was just that. It was just random shit. Nothing happened this whole episode. I'm sorry I'm upset in this episode, but I think a lot of us are. Eventually, though, they do eventually get out of this dark house, which finally, once that happened, was interesting. And what's the most interesting part of this episode? Those two sisters, nothing really happened to them, except we found that one of the sisters is a lesbian. So whatever. Who cares? Who really cares about either of these sisters? I don't know why they're such a big deal. But eventually he gets out of the car and everything. He goes into this road, we see the walkers, and apparently we're supposed to find out how these walkers got to the prison. And eventually he's left with just the little girl. He falls into a hole, and he's attacked. That was the end of the episode. That's all that happened in this episode. Was the governor came to these sisters, they were caring for him, they were talking to him and everything. Seemed like he had chemistry with one of the sisters, and he actually had sex with one of the sisters, which was ridiculous. I don't know why they made the governor have sex with one of the sisters. That was one of the stupidest things they've ever done on the show. He kidnapped this girl, which was interesting. You know, that was interesting to see him kidnap the little girl. The little girl was cute. I mean, they definitely had a cute little girl, but besides that, nothing really happened in this episode. I don't know why they had to do this. I don't know why they had to do a whole episode about the governor. It wasn't necessary. I want to see this prison. I want to see what happened in this prison. I don't want to see how the governor got to this prison. I want to see what's going on in the prison. We don't even get that in this episode. And guess what? Guess what's happening next week? The same thing. Yeah, they're not just doing one episode about the governor. They're doing 2 episodes about the governor. Because in the preview for next week, we don't see the prison. All we see is the governor and everyone, terrified and everything, and I, again, do not want to see this. And there were so many times in this episode where I was just like, okay, I'm this close to turning this episode off because nothing was happening for, most of the episode. The only thing that happened was he kidnapped the little girl, and he's fallen into a hole, and now he's been attacked. That's all that's happened in this episode. There's no questions tasked or anything, because we know what's ultimately going to happen to him. He's going to wind up at that prison. Why he's going to wind up at that prison, we don't know, but somehow he's going to wind up there. So honestly, this was just a very disappointing episode. I'm sorry I'm so upset about it, but I think a lot of us are just really, really upset about this episode. We really expected a really great episode tonight with the governor providing a lot of threats for the prison, and that's not what happened at all. We got a really lackluster episode. By far the worst episode I've ever seen of this show. I don't know if there's been a worse episode, but I think this was just a really, really bad episode. Definitely the worst of the season. Let me know if you guys saw this episode. Were you disappointed with this episode? Maybe you enjoyed it. I know some people didn't enjoy seeing the governor. I personally did not enjoy seeing this at all. I wanted to see the prison. Did you miss seeing the prison? Or maybe you didn't miss it. Maybe you wanted to see more of the governor and everything. Or maybe you were just really disappointed like I was. I'm sure a lot of us were just really disappointed. But, and are you upset that this storyline is continuing? Do you think it's actually gotten a little bit interesting? It's gotten a little bit interesting, but not even, that interesting at all, because, this was just a stupid episode. That's it for my review. I hope you enjoyed. I'll see you guys that's it for my rant on this episode. I'll see you guys in the next video. Okay, bye. Walking laters.